which one you want to hit today, man? Which one you start out with? I mean, I know comic books are your passion.
They are. I really like comic books. I've been a comic geek, since I was a kid. But in recent years, I've gotten away from comic books. I'm not too familiar with a lot of new Marvel titles that are coming out or anything like that. I haven't been steady with collecting because I was
going to say, what's new? I mean,
I don't know. They're taking some new directions with comic books. Are taking new directions with Venom. They've created
but no new characters. That's the thing.
There are some.
Well, okay, let's roll into this. So, welcome back to the pub. We are now at bar height, big boy table now. We are back with Comic Book Rob.
Thank you, sir. Just to touch base on some of the things. I mean, we talked about that Marvel doesn't have any new characters, and I think that is really what they need to touch base with. Marvel needs to develop new characters. With so much, with certain storylines that they want to use, it would be more fitting if they just went in and developed a new character instead of swapping. I can't.
Yeah, and I also feel like they need to just stop reinventing every freaking time.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna start this over. We're gonna reboot again. I mean, we got 3 Spider-Mans in our lifetime in the movie theaters, right? And they rebooted them every time, and it's like, okay, I don't need to see his origin story. I don't need to see Batman's origin story for the 100th time. It's like either carry these characters forward,
yeah,
let them age out and end, and then start with a new character. And if you have an agenda to build with certain types of requirements for demographics, it's much easier to start with a new character than it is to piss off the old fans with changing a current character to something different.
True. Marvel Comics is probably one of the worst for doing that. DC, on the other hand, they do it. Both companies run off a universal aspect. DC Comics has Elseworlds. Marvel Comics has Multiverse. I think, but there needs, when you're doing all these different variants, I think it takes away from character development. Not so much character development as it takes away from the creativity level of pulling in new superheroes. Don't get me wrong, I like all the original superheroes. And, everybody does want to see something different. But one of the biggest things I think that is failing with Disney is they really just don't understand cultural diversity too well. I just don't think they do.
No, they know it. They know it, and they're going to tell you all about it.
Yeah,
they're going to force it down your frickin' throat.
And I can tell you their look on it is not going to help them in the future.
It's already. You're seeing all their movies are tanking now because all of their movies are tanking because of their certain message. I love the Critical Drinker because he always talks about the message.
Yes.
as he's critiquing these movies, and he's giving them an honest attempt. But it's like at this point, you're rolling your eyes over strong female characters. I don't care. We had great strong female characters in the 80s and 90s, and then they're acting like they're making these brand new, this has never happened before kind of things. And I forget which actress even said that out loud and was chastised for it later. It's like, listen, you think you're the first strong female character in any movie, and then it's like, here's a list of women that came before you that were much better. And I think she finally ate her words, but it wasn't Brie Larson. She's shoved her foot in her mouth enough, but the chick from Hunger Games, I think it was her. But but I think a lot of it comes from this ideology, and this particular ideology is referring to as the wokeisms, woke ideology, which is,
it's not as big as they think it is. They think it's the greatest thing since sliced cake. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you here.
No, go ahead.
And the one thing they just don't understand, and we've talked about it before, is the audience that they are entertaining is a fan-based audience, and it's not a general audience. You have your general audience that goes to see these movies, you know, and they're going to be there until the popularity fizzles away.
Right.
But all you're going to have to do, all you're going to have left once that popularity fizzles away, which most of it has, is your fan base. Mostly the people right now in Phase 4, after the flopping and everything else, the people that go to these movies are fans. And if you are not writing your movies and directing your movies on the same path as them and all the stuff that they've read, I would say that your chances are you are seriously going to hurt your movies. You're seriously going to see a decline in your profits. Movies will start going down, drop in general audience. You know, and I said this right at the end of Phase 4. Once they started announcing all this, you know, these new versions of the same character, I'm like, that's not going to work. I didn't. And all the problems around it, you know.
They haven't even finished introducing all the characters they have, right? I mean,
no, there was other. I think Phase 4 should have been introducing more Marvel characters that they've not introduced before. I think that should have been done in it, and they should have started building on another big threat villain. And I can tell you right now, my villain of choice would have not been King the Conqueror. Mine would have been Doom. That's what I would have went with. Right now, Doom is so hot in comics. They would have, you know, they really would have pulled something in. And I just don't think that gender swapping is good. I'm not against cultural diversity. I think there should be a superhero for everyone. But if you want to make a superhero for everyone, create it. And they should be created. Somebody else shouldn't be in that position that it creates the potential to destroy iconic superheroes. And I don't think that should be done.
I think what you're getting at, this really just popped in my head. At some point, like certain iconic characters, they're invented a long time ago by their original artist or writer or whoever. But I mean, some of them have long since passed on. Even Stan Lee's gone. You know, it's
Stan Lee's gone.
But it's like, who now really
Jack
owns
Kirby.
those characters, right? But you can get into legal rights and blah blah blah, this and that, and corporations. But who owns those characters are the fans.
That's it.
Because they're the ones buying the stuff and buying the material and supporting that. And when you betray them, your money source is going to go away, and that's how it's going to show. But yeah, it's. You're right. You are catering to the fans when you're making a movie based on a built-in audience. You're catering to those particular fans, and you should do it justice and do it right.
Yes, and here's the thing: most of the fans that are reading them comics, they see themselves in that superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're doing things like changing certain things around about them, that's causing problems. You know, like I said,
you're changing who that superhero is.
Yes, and you're changing, you know, what they are and what they represent, and it's just, I really think it's a bad. I mean, I'm hearing things, I don't know how true they are, on social media about, you know, higher ups in Disney really fooling around with Deadpool 3. And
don't do it. He's our buddy.
Yes.
He's my number 6.
Ryan Reynolds is really having a lot, from what I hear, is having a lot of problems with him. I personally think that he is not just a natural Deadpool, but he's born to create comic book movies. I really do. I think he would, if he had more say so in Marvel Disney films, he would definitely produce movies that would spike sales. I really do. I think he does. I think he's really tapped into what people want to see. I mean, Ryan Reynolds said he spent a lot of his time reading comics. He is a comic book fan. And that's what kind of mind they need towards making those movies. But what screws up most of these movies in general is when you're writing a movie that's based off of a book, a novel, or anything else, most of your writers that are in there, have to have a feel for that book and a knowledge of that book. And if it's not in there to a certain extent, I think it damages the movie. There has to be some element to comic books and comic book movies. And what I think Marvel Disney is failing at is they're taking a lot of that element out.
Which is basically the failure of virtually all comic book based movies prior to the MCU. They were all taking over. They took like just the main character. They even they got rid of their villains. They just, it's like watch it. I even watched this really bad Captain America from I think 1990 or something like that.
And it seemed like it was better than the one they had now?
No, I mean, you're talking about the current Captain America? No, it was...
Well, Chris Evans, I think he
But
did
they made,
the
Red Skull was in it, so they actually had the one villain, but he was Italian and not German, and they changed his whole backstory. They made so many changes to it. And it was like, the story is very, very, it's not very well related to the source material. It was probably one of the better of some of the older comic book movies that came to life, but most of them just never materialized in anything special. And like you said, and when the MC came around with Iron Man and everything else, and it stayed very faithful to the source material, whereas now they're deviating very, very sharply.
And that's what I understand. And I always cross-reference to Deadpool. Deadpool is such a really good representation of a comic book movie that I was in awe because of it. It was probably one of the closest, besides the first Spider-Man. First Spider-Man was just like, it was like I was sitting inside a comic book. It really was. And I reference Deadpool a lot because over the years...
Talking about the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man?
Yes.
Yeah.
The very first Spider-Man that they came up with, I think it was in 99. Mm-hmm. Was it 99 when they released that? I think. I could be off on my dates, I'm sorry. But the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was very good. He did good with those. And this is where I honestly think a lot of the problems happen. We've seen Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, and then we've seen an absolute failure with Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. And it was due not to the directing, but this is one of the biggest failures. You've got some corporate that steps into the scene and decides that he's going to finish up the movie for you. Mm. And he doesn't know what he's doing with it and screws it all up. And this is what's going on with Marvel Disney. You get once corporates get involved, most of these corporates that I've seen, they don't even look like they've touched a comic book. Not once
Probably
in their
never.
life. And I can tell you, I'm 50 years old, and over the past 3 years, I've probably read maybe 5 or 6 comic books in 3 years. And because one,
These being newer, current
I'm
comics.
I'm so busy, and my lifestyle is so pressed that I don't have time for it, not like I used to. I would like to get back to enjoying comic books, but when I get days off, I want to interact with people and go out and do things.
Imagine that, actually being social.
Right. I want to go out and socialize, hang out with my friends, maybe do a little bit of enjoying life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I still love comic books, but I couldn't tell you what's up to date and what the newest story is. A few of them I have. I read King in Black that was done by, it involves actually the entire Marvel universe. The symbiote god Null pretty much wants to take over everything and conquer and rule. And all the heroes band together. Well, in the end, Venom ends up taking him out. He gets all the powers of Captain Universe and just annihilates it all. It's a good comic. It's very good. You see different adaptations of Venom that are pretty cool. There's a Venom that gets like these bat-like wings. Venom at one point becomes the Herald to Null. And it's really cool. The Spider-Man 2 game, they captivate on that a little bit. My son was telling me about it. But there is artwork out there where Venom is like that. He's in the King in Black series.
So those are older characters or characters that have been around that
they're doing new things
with. But I think what we're discussing probably right before we started is like, what else is out there that's totally new? Is there anything that's like brand new characters, brand new storylines? Something that hasn't been done before that.
There is, but I've not been able to touch base on these characters. I don't, Is it in Marvel or is it in like alternative comic book sources? Or? There are, because of the big boom with the MCU, other comic book companies have pushed to spring up. You've got other comic book companies. But Marvel, as far as I know, they have worked on newer based characters over the past 20 years. America Chavez is fairly new. She's part of the...
She appeared in the Doctor Strange...
Yes, she did.
Doctor Strange movie.
She did appear in Doctor Strange.
I wasn't really impressed with her as a character.
No, I just...
that's part of the woke messaging I don't like. It's like, you don't see women go through any type of character arc. It's just, they just have to believe in themselves and there's perfect.
Yeah, there's
what message can I deliver to my daughters on that?
There was no development there.
You don't have to fail. You're just going to be perfect just by believing in yourself. That doesn't help you anywhere. It doesn't inspire you anywhere.
It doesn't, right.
And it's like, I'm not super powered. I can't just believe in myself and win.
We looked at classic example. Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, a perfect mind that you can take that into reality. You could take that into your world. The more power you have, the more responsibilities you have.
Batman lost his parents. They were murdered in front of him. He took that as, of course, Batman's a very deep psychological character. But
one that's been reinvented about 100 times too.
But there's nothing. These new woke characters that come into comic books, they did nothing to earn their title. Oh, this person, she's smarter than Doom and Reed Richards. That actually went through and had to study and earn their way into their position. And Doom was just they were considered geniuses, but they went through school and everything. This person is just automatically smart.
And years of character development, and that's
and then there was character development around them, and like they said, they've done nothing to earn their position and title. That's one way of spotting a woke character. Done absolutely nothing to earn their position and title and what it is they've done. The other one is that they stand above everyone else, and all of a sudden, Captain America's movie now becomes about this woke character. You know what I mean? That's I step in and take over, and I'm the greatest. And their gender, of course. But it's just a lame story around these characters too. There's nothing that really throws in excitement. If you look at, I know you're not a big Batman fan, but if you look
we've had this argument before.
I know you don't like Batman.
I've promised to back down on you, but every now and then I have to throw.
I know you do.
I throw one at you online.
I expect it to come. I am a huge DC and I'm a huge Batman fan. I've liked Batman comics since I was like 15 and 16 years old. If you look at his story, there's something there to tell about it. He lost his parents tragically. Trauma and tragedy is what formed the character that he is. It might be a deep, immense psychological character, but it was something that was used to form who he is. These new characters, there's nothing at the base.
No, if they even try something to just ramrod it through. I don't know much about the America Chavez character, but even what they did with her in the MCU, it was like, you get about 2 seconds. Oh, look, she had 2 moms. Oh, look, they're gone. They're dead. Okay. Oh, look, she's
another one.
And then she's just moving through.
Miss Marvel and
I've not watched any of that.
No, I won't either.
That character just has no inspiration.
And Captain Marvel, I'm like, God.
Brie Larson.
Here's the thing. Marvel has a way, Marvel Disney has a way of bringing in And they had a huge success with the Guardians of the Galaxy. They were D-list characters, but you know what? James Gunn made them to where they had interesting story. They gave them a good background. He put and built a story into them.
And they were modified from their original story. Most of them were.
They were modified. There was modifications done there. There was actually good directing, good writing, good producing within the Guardians of the Galaxy, and their stories fit in with, Endgame and
the bigger picture.
The bigger picture, and that's what they needed in there. And believe it or not, Guardians of the Galaxy were D-list characters. But here's the thing I'm going to say: all these newer characters that they threw in there was nothing. There was no story development. I mean, Captain Marvel is such a pitiful D-list character. I never took interest in reading
is her
any
character just like that in the comics, or is the movie different than the comics with Captain Marvel?
There is more story around it, and it wasn't just focused on her being the greatest and toughest. They tried to do some character development with it, but it didn't succeed well. It was like you ever heard of the real old Marvel character Darkhawk?
No.
He was created when we were in grade school. And he was like super D-list character, never advanced. All his comics are sitting in the dollar shelf, They're just not moving anywhere. That's what her comics were like. Another good example is I can't say She-Hulk, but there was a few more characters that were like that.
It's another series I just avoided. It's like you could smell it in the trailer, like, oh, I don't want to watch this.
I had hopes for it. I thought it was going to be good, and it was absolutely horrible. I said they did She-Hulk no justice, and then they turned around. They fired the actor. I don't know what her name was that actually played She-Hulk. They fired her. I'm like, it's not her fault. It wasn't her fault that the entire thing went to flop.
Writing and directing around it.
Writing and directing was bad around it, and they're even talking about making a second one. I'm like, why even bother?
Yeah, no kidding. If it didn't go over well,
they didn't think about things before they done them. Really, they didn't understand that what it was they had in their hand was not something they could just do whatever it is they want with. And expect something good to come out of it.
So what's left of? Let's just stick with the MCU. I mean, DCU has kind of been all over the map. It's been crumbling, but the MCU it's still alive. it's faltering quite a bit. But what's left that could salvage it, and what kind of storyline could bring it back online, in your opinion?
I think if they went with the Doom storyline, they've got to do a whole new reset. And
he's big enough that they could have an Avengers level kind of fight. I mean,
in the comic books, Doom has single-handedly taken out the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men by himself. So at one time, Doom held 2 gauntlets in his hands. I mean, that's how powerful Doom is. Doom is a very huge threat. He has the capabilities not just to take over the world, but he has the capabilities to be a universal threat. In past comics, one of the biggest comic book titles I've read over the past 3 years was the updated version of Marvel's Secret Wars. And that's where Doom gets 2 gauntlets. He literally takes over the entire universe. He's done some things in that I just don't know if I want to talk about it here, but they would do very well right now to find a way to introduce Doom. The Fantastic Four movie, another disappointment, is coming up in 2025. They are going to make the Silver Surfer a female.
I've heard that, and there's still time to say no. Please don't.
Yes, there is in alternate realities. There is a female version of Silver Surfer, and she is a Herald of Galactus. Now, I don't. I'm not. I'm definitely not in agreement with it. I think they should go with the Nora Rad story. Much better origin story. This one don't even have an origin story. That I know of, but I think they should stay with just a regular Nora and Rad Silver Surfer and not do any gender swapping. Stop doing this stuff. It's really what's smashing the MCU right now. But they could, if they wanted to, introduce Doom. But that means they're going to have to scrap Kang Dynasty, because Kang Dynasty was leading to Marvel's Secret Wars.
Yeah, I think they're in a big pickle about that right now with the
Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
Jonathan Majors,
unless they recast him or something, but
he was found guilty through the court system for beating up some girl. That, you know,
what'd she say? What'd she do to him?
I'm hearing all kinds.
I don't know.
I'm hearing all kinds of things in media.
She better not do it again.
Right. Don't do that again.
Told her once.
Yeah, I told that one once I had to smack them lips in. I want that sandwich now.
Bring me a sandwich, woman.
Sandwich, I'll smack them lips in. Get my bird, too.
Oh boy, here comes the sandwich again.
But
yeah, we've taken some shit over that.
oh, God. But I don't know. I've heard things on media about they wanted to keep pushing forward with the Kang storyline. But like I said, the way I would have done it, but I don't understand movie editing, directing. I don't have that kind of mind like directors and editors and all those other guys do. I would have said, okay, we're going to push with the Doom agenda. Fantastic Four would have been in Phase 4. That's where Fantastic Four would have been setting. Is in Phase 4. Fantastic Four in Phase 4 would have introduced Doctor Doom. You know what I mean? And in that phase, I would have been introducing other characters like Hyperion, maybe Sentry. Get some high hitters in there. Some people like, you know, like Incredible Hulk level threats. You know, maybe something on those lines. Something that's going to make it interesting. Better battle scenes within the movie, too.
Well, is it... For me, I mean,
what did you think of in Deadpool 2 when you see the Juggernaut show up?
oh, that was cool.
Freaking cool,
That was
man.
done well, too.
Isn't it what you want to see?
I'm going to rip you in half now.
Yes. And that's a guy thing.
Not right now.
What Marvel Comics is doing with what Marvel Disney is doing with comic books is like taking a bunch of football players and saying, "Listen, you guys are wearing pink tutus today." You know, it's on those lines. Or let's put a chick on a Bud Light can. Wait, it's not a chick. It's a chick with a... and then we'll advertise it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's...
Disrespecting your target audience. That's another example of it.
Well, yes,
and
that's...
dilemma, yeah.
And I guarantee you, there's a lot of fans within probably my age group and underneath that it's really disappointed.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, guy, what is going on?
Bottom line, Marvel, stop disappointing your fans. We're going to stop going. I mean, I already have. I've checked out on a lot of it, and I was a huge fan right from the start. And yeah, and let me correct myself. I kind of said it started with Iron Man, but you're right. I mean, the Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire movies were far before that, and they were done well. And, so Iron Man kicked off the MCU, but Spider-Man was before that. But that was part of Sony, but they didn't have the big plan. They just started with the one movie, and then they kind of, okay, this worked. And then they continued, but they failed by the third one because too many cooks got in that kitchen. And too many cooks didn't know what to do or didn't know their target audience, right? So, and it seems to be a lot of times the old adage of the sequel wasn't as good as the original, and it was just try to get a money grab.
Right.
Whereas now we've gotten to the point where some sequels are better than the originals. But I think this world building kind of thing that all these movie groups are into are kind of starting to overdo it, and then they kind of hit this point where they just go, over the hill.
Right.
And yeah, it's kind of it's tricky, and you almost need to have. I don't know how to fix it, other than the best thing we do as fans is vote with your money, right? I mean, if you don't like what you see, don't buy it, and they'll stop making it that way.
That's it.
And it waits till people come around, and they'll have to build a gotta have it product that people will flock to, and then that'll show. But
I think Deadpool 3 is going to gross a lot of money, and it's going to make a ton of money. But I think in Deadpool 3, if things don't get straightened out before they release it, and Bob Iger has his way, Deadpool 3 is going to probably really sink the MCU.
And yeah, if it doesn't go over well because of too much manipulation, right?
Yes.
I mean, Ryan Reynolds has done an amazing job with Deadpool, and love it. Love 1 and 2 are just absolute. Before you show up, I play those movies to kind of get revved up and get in a good mood, and just love the witty humor. If you take all that out and you start putting in other messages in there, it's like people are like, "What the fuck is this? What am I watching?" And again, too many cooks in the kitchen. Like if someone else comes in and says, "No, we need to change this and that," and you start getting it away from the original.
And right, you start out making a wonderful lasagna, and it turns into let's throw some scoops of ice cream in there, and it turns into
Well, we need to sweeten it up.
a blob.
But these flavors don't go together.
Yes, that's it. It's. I hate to say it, but I really think
That's why dessert is separate from your main course, right? Your main course dessert is something on the side.
I really think that the MCU is going to lose Ryan Reynolds in the near future.
I hope not.
I really do. If they don't give him the creative freedom that he wants, and they agreed to that at first. They said, okay, you're going to be in charge of the film. I think Ryan Reynolds is the director and even the producer of the film.
Trojan horse contract.
Well,
Here, just sign the top cover. Don't mind what's underneath. Or it's blank. Just sign the bottom. We'll fill in the rest of it.
I mean, half of those Disney corps, they don't know nothing about what would they. If I went in there and said, "Excuse me, could you guys tell me who T-Ray is?" Oh, I don't know who T-Ray is.
I don't either. Oh.
T-Ray is in 1997. Marvel Comics released Deadpool. He got his own comic book. Deadpool did in '97. T-Ray is one of his villains in there. Not so much a villain. He's kind of like a bounty hunter, just like him. T-Ray does have minor magic abilities, but he is a character in Deadpool comics. Now, if I asked Ryan Reynolds, he definitely would know who that was. But that's Ryan Reynolds. But them corps wouldn't have known. I'm sure that some of them would be able to answer Blind Al. Everybody knows who Blind Al is from the comics.
No, well, yeah, she's in the movies.
She's in the movies, and she's actually from the comics. He had she was one of his roommates. And Weasel was in it. He was in the first one, right? I believe he was in the second one, too.
He's in both movies,
He's
yeah.
in both
He's not going to be in the third one because of the character problem.
I believe
or the actor.
Dopender was a taxi cab driver. Because in the comic books, he used a taxi to get to most of his scenes where he had to take.
I didn't know that, but that's actually a cool thing because
Yes.
he's a funny character too.
Yes,
in his own light,
Well, like I said, he did so well with it, and like I said, you got a masterpiece going. All of a sudden, some drunk corporate staggers in with his fifth liquor. Why don't we put all this stuff in there? Oh no, I just frickin' love it. All right, sell it.
I don't know if it really went down that way, but
Well,
most of the rest of us can't be drunk on the job. What the heck?
well, I'm sorry, but coming from my angle on things, and the way I see comic books is they should not be done this way.
Off to a good start, but then now they're going astray from the original.
I think they need to get away from D-list characters and start pulling in more A-list. They really do. They need to make their movies a little bit more hard hitting too. Some good intense action in them. Comic books are based off action. They've got all these powers. Why? To show them off. You know what I mean? One thing that really helps with superhero development is powers and abilities. If they are displaying more of their power and their ability on the screen, it's giving them, an edge, It's building some of what it is they do.
Well, even a slow build where they're learning and they're growing and they're expanding, that also helps. But my biggest problem is, and it does start to lose me, and I was afraid of it in the very beginning with the MCU, is the overpowered characters. And you get to the point where Thor was a hard sell. He's kind of overpowered, but they dialed it back a little bit, but then they kind of made it like a race of aliens, and then they went back to the whole God thing, but they kind of went back and forth with that. But
turned the Hulk into a wuss.
Yeah, and then turned Hulk into the wuss. Yeah, they dialed him back too much, but
too much.
But to me, when it's like the super duper overpowered characters that are at that level, it's like then it's just a huge CG battle. But what I think would be more interesting is starting from fresh with a whole new group of heroes, and make some of them slightly disposable too, but make them no more powerful than like a Captain America. Someone who's just above human level, can do some pretty incredible things, but you can't just fly for no reason. Like I like physics. It's like, what kind of power can you get to someone to just fly away? I can't explain it anyway, so it's kind of not even in a slightly plausible way. I mean, you can fly with wings, but you can't just, like Superman. I don't. It's a hard sell to do it and do it right. I think you can be far more interesting to have people with modern weapons and greater than human abilities, and you could do something like that, and then have them be able to be injured and hurt, and it makes the stakes higher in a story, right? When someone's invulnerable, what are the stakes? Well, nothing can hurt the fucker.
Well, I mean, there are some interesting stories that were developed around the really high power, like the Hulk, for example. They have Planet Hulk and the World War Hulk storyline. Mm-hmm. They also have the Mastro storyline too, that was written back in the late '90s, which was, I mean,
and these are three different branches of the same character. They're not one story. There's they don't intersect.
The Mastro storyline was one of the first. It wasn't the first, but it was one of the first alternate reality variants of the Hulk. It's a story that is written in a time where they were in another world, and the Hulk literally took over the planet. He called himself the Mastro. He was a version of the Hulk that went insane. So, there was a group of people that had found alternate realities where the Hulk exists, and they came into our timeline to get our Hulk from our timeline to take out the Hulk in that timeline. And the story around it really gets interesting. There's a scene in it where he goes into his game room, the Mastro does, and there's like Captain America's shield, Thor's hammer, Spider-Man's mask, all these fallen heroes that went up against him, and he killed every one of them. Didn't stand a chance against him in the end. The Hulk goes there in the first battle. The Mastro just beats the Hulk into the ground. He was like the Bruce Banner Hulk that we've seen in the Professor Hulk that we've seen in the Avengers. You know, the one that could talk and everything like that. And in the late 90s, that version of the Hulk was kind of like a popular version of the Hulk. The Mindless Hulk was probably my favorite. What we have not seen from the Hulk yet that we need to see on the big screen, I think, is for the Hulk to seriously Hulk out. Now, in World War Hulk, he literally... they call them the Illuminati. They're like a council of superheroes. They literally banned the Incredible Hulk from Earth, launch him out into space to another planet. They said he's too much of a dangerous threat, and somehow, some way, he gets on this other planet, and that's where his son Sakaar comes from. He ends up mating on there. He ends up becoming the ruler of the planet right next to the queen. Well, the queen does something to take the ship out that they sent him to Earth. They send him to that planet in, and the ship detonated and killed the queen. And he thought that was meant for me. He thought the ship that he arrived at, that they launched him into space, that the Illuminati did. What happened is it landed on that planet where Sakaar was. They called it Sakaar because they were all a Sakarian race. And when his wife gets into that ship that he arrived in and leaves and goes out of orbit, it detonates and blows up. They had like a fail-safe for returning. It was only a one destination ship. Well, the Hulk goes seriously enraged nuts, gets in one of the Sakari ships, and flies back to Earth. He literally almost takes out every single superhero on the planet. It's one of the best.
Is it the World War Hulk or line?
It is.
Okay.
It is World War Hulk. World War Hulk is probably one of the better storylines. He does some very interesting things. If anybody has a chance and they've not read it, please read that. It's an excellent read.
Yeah, they've teased some of that in the MCU, but it's kind of.
I think with She-Hulk, they really tried to destroy the storyline base with that. And I mean, it just. Why would you introduce him that early and just confuse a bunch of people?
I don't know. Quite strange. Anyway, well, I mean, so to fix the MCU, your thoughts are go back to the basics, bring out more of your A-list characters,
Yeah,
and start over, and then use Doctor Doom as your next Avengers level threat.
that's personally what I would have done. In Phase 4, I would have introduced the Fantastic Four. I would have started building around Doom's story right away. I think some of the best stories, you remember in the Infinity Gauntlet, they had to build up to Thanos in stories.
Right.
Well, having that style of story development is really, really good. It creates suspense. It creates what's the other word that I'm looking for? Suspense is probably the biggest one. Suspense can keep an audience going for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just didn't have it. And I understand what they were trying to do with the Eternals. They were trying to create an origin story for the Marvel Universe. Which, you know, every story needs an explanation of how everything was. That's why we have origin stories.
I didn't like that movie either.
How everything begins. I just...
Bunch of characters I knew nothing about. I cared nothing about.
Well, the thing was
long, it was drawn
that was
out.
another D-list comic.
Yeah.
It was one of Marvel comics that just didn't do well
with it.
And they were going, well, Guardians of the Galaxy was D-list, but you know what? They took these characters and they built something interesting into them. You know, they didn't just... James Gunn had a special formula when he was directing. He knew what he was doing with it, and he created something good with it. I mean, he was an experienced director. He directed other movies outside of that, too. James Gunn did. He's the one that's taking over the DCU now, as James Gunn.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
But yeah.
So my fix is if something like what you're saying happens, I would probably continue to watch the MCU movies. But what I'd like to see, and the best example of it is like what I was saying with highest level superheroes of being like a Captain America level. And a great example of that is the Captain America Winter Soldier movie.
Yeah.
Very high stakes. Great, well done all the way from one end to the other.
Very good.
You know, people got shot, people got hurt, and you could have a cast that are, you know, somewhat expendable in that sense. When you create a series of movies like that, I think would be far more, almost like a James Bond spy kind of movie.
I think you're
kind
right.
of thing. I think, but you're doing it with guys that are a little more superpowered, which could make can make for better action sequences that are more believable. Because if you see a human being getting bounced around in a car and, you know, car tumbles, rolls, and they pop out of the car and start running, and like, no human being's going to do that. You get tumbled in the car, you're fucked up.
Yeah, man.
You get thrown against a brick wall.
You're
You're fucked up. You got broken
Well,
ribs. You're not
Yes.
kicking it up for the next next stage of the movie. But but if you're super powered, you can kind of explain away some of that. But I'm not talking like overpowered. I'm talking like I'm saying, like Captain America level, maybe Wolverine kind of level kind of stuff, where you can have characters that are on that level, and you can still make a great story out of it. But I'd like to see something like that, only brand new, like all new characters I've never heard of. Let's develop it as we go. As certain characters become more popular, then maybe you can just start going more into their story. But
the thing is
I want to see something new and fresh. Is what I'm saying.
When you're creating stories for popularity, the new development never ends. Popularity always demands something new. Yesterday was just trash. Throw it away. So you constantly gotta redevelop.
Lately, kind of attitude from the fans.
I think that's why. You ever watch Invincible?
Oh yeah.
Invincible it's done very, very good, man, and it's brand new.
I have some problems with certain characters in that show, and they overdo certain things. But outside of that, you're right. It is done pretty well.
It is very well done. It's a good cartoon. I love it. I love my son likes watching it.
I mean, it's good, but I think even better than that is The Boys.
Yeah, God. Yeah, that is probably...
What do you do with a psychotic Superman? Okay, now you got a problem.
Yes. A psychotic...
They are tiptoeing around that guy for good reason. It's scary. That's like, holy crap, when that guy's in the room and he's staring you down, like, what's he going to do?
That adaptation remake of Daredevil... Oh, God. He just annihilated him.
All you can do is hear, Whack. Well, and that's kind of like, I mean, even someone with greater abilities can't hold a candle to someone with Superman type abilities, right? And it's like, wouldn't put up a fight. And that's really that's more realistic about how it'd be. And I think they do a pretty good job of keeping a lot of superpower stuff grounded, but there's still some of it I have problems with from a physics standpoint, but
the Boys,
there's suspension of disbelief on a lot of it. So
The Boys gives us a look as to what the world would look like if people really had superpowers.
Mm-hmm. And they're very corruptible.
I mean, you're going to have the good guys and you're going to have the bad guys. That's just going to happen.
All right, well, I think we're done with our first beer. This kind of wraps up round one here. I think we want to change up the subject matter for a second round.
Yeah, we can.
What's on your mind, Rob? What's bugging you?
What
grinds your gears?
Just the whole thing around some of the interesting topics, relationships between men and women. That's
all right.
I think that's the topic of interest that I'm really wanting to talk about in our next segment.
We're going to go there next. And, tune in. We'll either have this as a second segment or a part two. But I'll decide when I edit it. All right, we'll be back. Here's to being a reflection of the 5 or 6 friends you keep closest to you. I currently have an opening for number 6, and I'd like that to be Deadpool.
Fuck it. Superhero landing coming up. Fuck. Oh, that is so